what we know can be, and on this day we hope for what we still can't see. It's up to us to bring the change.
And even though the world can still do more,
there's so much to be thankful for.
yes, there is. And there's so much to be thankful for.
There's so much to be thankful for.
The other day, a member of the church shared a story with me, and she encouraged me to share it with you. It was an experience that happened to her a little over a year ago when her mother was taken to the hospital overnight. The next morning, she went to see her, and she explained, when I walked into my mother's hospital room, I expected her to greet me and tell me what she'd had for breakfast, how her night had been, about her medical concerns. I could not have been prepared for what greeted me instead. Due to a bad reaction from a steroid that they had been giving her, my mother had total amnesia. My cousin was sitting with her and calmly briefing her on the names of her husband and children and grandchildren. She'd already listed each member of the family, and my mother was struggling to hold all their names in her mind. And in one of the most surreal experiences of my life, my cousin introduced me to my mother. And this is your daughter. Picking up on the cue to remain calm, I smiled and greeted Mom as if nothing were out of the ordinary. She looked at me with wonder. You're my daughter? Sitting next to her, I began to talk with her. She'd been terrified when my cousin had first entered the room because she didn't know who she was, and she didn't know why she was in the hospital. Before my cousin had arrived, my mother, in a panic, asked a nurse to call the police to try to help her to discover her identity. Now she was calm but bewildered, and I chatted with her for several minutes before I began to feel my own panic kick in. After stepping into the hallway and calling All Souls and a best friend to vent my fears, I returned to my mom and I began to try to help her reconstruct her identity. I pulled out my phone and tablet and I showed her pictures of her life. When I showed her videos of my children, her jaw dropped in astonishment. These are my grandchildren? They're so talented. Then she began to ask me all sorts of questions about myself. What was I like? And what did I like to do? And what matters to me? Suddenly it was as if I were the most fascinating person in the world for her. And she wanted to know everything about me. Slowly it dawned on me that with her memory wiped clean, so were all hurts, disappointments, and resentments. Right now was the only time we had, the only time we'd ever had. The layers of patina that can dull a relationship over time were polished away, and she looked at me in that moment and clearly saw my heart. In her eyes at that moment, I was perfect and amazing. Like a child, she sat in wide-eyed wonder at all that was her life. She recalled each memory as if she were unwrapping a gift, and she marveled at every one of them. Joyfully, she reawakened to herself, reminding me of George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, In the scene when he runs laughing down through the streets of Bedford Falls, greeting everybody and everything with a renewed sense of gratitude and amazement. And while she saw my heart, I saw hers clearly as well. Briefly, we both stepped out of the roles that we had come to assume with each other, and it was enough to just be our essential selves, gazing upon one another and being in each other's presence. My mother's memory returned within an hour or so, but I came to understand that the amnesia had been a gift. What would it be like if we could truly forget the pains and the disappointments that we hold on to? What could we let go of, our resentments, and could we see the true essence of those we love? If we had no memory of the past, even for a brief moment, what would we see when we gazed at others? Wouldn't they all be perfect and amazing, just as they are? It's often said, to forgive is not to forget. But her story reminds us that if we were able to forget the past, even for a brief moment, we might be able to truly see the person before us for the first time or in a new way. We might be able to see their beauty and the wonder in each person's life and in their eyes and in their possibilities, that which is buried underneath some of the baggage that we sometimes carry and build up around our relationships with each other. Now, forgetting is not the answer to letting go of past hurts. It's not realistic, for one, but it's not the point either. But it does give us a window into something important about forgiveness. When I think about the different conceptions of God, there's the one like the Santa Claus God, keeping a tally on all the ways that we've been naughty or nice. And at the end of our lives, we're told we will have to, take account for all that we have done or not done. And then there's the universalist idea of God, who's like the father in the story of the prodigal son in Luke's gospel in the Bible, who's so glad when his son returns, even though he's done all kinds of terrible things and had disgraced his family and wasted money and broken every possible moral law. And yet he's welcomed back by his father with unconditional love. A story, a metaphor of God's love, according to Luke. Author Stephanie Dowrick has written, "Forgiveness may be the supreme virtue, the most virtuous of virtues, the apotheosis of love. For it declares, I will attempt to go on loving the life in you, or the divine in you, or the soul in you, even when I totally abhor what you have done, or even what you stand for." She goes on to say, this is awesome to translate into practice, into real life. In emotional terms, it's climbing Everest without oxygen. It's winning the Wimbledon without a racket. It's playing La Scala without a score. Forgiveness is not about claiming that what someone did is okay. Nor does it have to involve trusting the person again necessarily, depending on who it is and what's happened. But it is about coming to a place where we can feel that another person is our equal. The other person is our equal with regard to being as deserving of love as we are. It's also about believing that you are as deserving of love as anyone else is. Now, having traveled the world extensively over many years, exploring different religions and people and cultures and beauty, I've discovered one powerful truth That no life is so shattered or sheltered or shamed that it cannot be a vehicle of transforming love. In theistic language, you would say every person has the ability to be a conduit of God's grace. It's out of this profound conviction about life and about love that my own heart's been open to forgiveness again and again. Forgiveness is something that we feel rather than think. In fact, forgiveness offends our rational mind. When we've been hurt or abused or taken advantage of or violated or betrayed or cheated or harmed in some significant way, the idea of responding to another person with love or compassion or even attempting to understand their actions seems deeply offensive when we approach it logically. And if we have been the source of the wrongdoing ourselves, it can be even harder to imagine forgiving ourselves. So since getting amnesia is not really a realistic strategy, and reasoning our way out of these hurts and harms and mistakes is usually not enough, then how else can we get there? Now, I've come to acknowledge in my own life that I will never, probably never, likely never, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say never, get to the top of Mount Everest with or without oxygen. It's not even a goal that I have for myself. However, my real life's goal is to learn to love. Now, on that journey, finding the land of forgiveness in my own heart has sometimes been the most difficult territory to navigate. When I fall short of my own hopes, my own values, my own expectations, I find it incredibly hard to let myself off the hook. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty good at beating myself up when I'm the one who's done the harm or the wrong. Now, when I've felt that someone else has wronged me, I don't find it easy to let go either. Considering how hard it is, either way, sometimes we wonder why we even try. We try, I think, because it's no fun to live our lives with hardened hearts and broken relationships. And the thing is that forgiveness is not really about the past. It's about the future. What's done is done. What matters now is how will we live into today and into tomorrow. Carrying around resentment and shame and old hurts and heavy burdens, it's a lot. It's too much. It's not worth it. My favorite quote about forgiveness is, it's giving up hope of a better yesterday. When we think about forgiveness as being about the future and not really even about the past, when we think about it as something that we do for ourselves rather than for the other person, then we realize that the reason we do it is to be free, to free ourselves of something that's holding us back. Life is way too short. And who wants to get to the end of their days and realize that we spent our precious life carrying around a painful baggage that's held us back from being as loving and deeply connected as is possible for us? Now, one of the things that keeps me working to forgive is that I've experienced hatred turned to love. And I've watched my own and others' anger transformed into hope. And the special moments when disappointment is converted into possibilities. It's beautiful. It's so affecting when it happens. It's more affecting than the most beautiful symphony that I've ever heard. It's more enlivening than the most amazing sunset that I've ever seen. And as much as I love watching sports and dance and people just acting and moving in graceful, amazing ways, seeing that life come and open up to hope and possibility in the wake of forgiveness is the most beautiful performance that I've ever seen in my life. And to know the power of forgiveness, it's not to know it in our minds. It's not to know love as an abstract thought, but to experience that kind of transformation is to understand love in our bones, in our very tissues. It's a journey of the heart. It's a journey to the center of our humanity. It's a journey to the edge of our divinity. And it may be the highest mountain any of us ever climb. And it's worth it. Now, my dad, who's 81 years old, he told me a story of something that happened to him fairly recently. Now, he's been a hospice volunteer for many, many years. And the organization he works with holds trainings for their volunteers and workshops and things to thank them and to give them some new knowledge. And he went to one a little over a year ago, and the presenter asked them to do an exercise in which they were paired up with another person, and they were asked to begin first by writing a thank you note to someone who's been important in your life. Now, if you know my dad, he's 6'2", 240 pounds, a former college wrestler from the 1950s, former Air Force pilot. I like to say he's rough, tough, and hard to bluff. So here he is in this workshop thinking to himself, this is a waste of time. I don't want to be doing this. Let's go on and do something that actually is about hospice. But what was he going to do? Here he was. Everybody was there. He was paired up, so he played along. He began to write a thank you note to his favorite coach in high school, Coach Gardner. And as my dad explains it, Coach Gardner had sent hundreds of kids like my dad to college because he cared about them. He cared about education. He was a fantastic coach and role model. And so the presenter in the workshop broke in after they had finished writing. Just let them get started, kind of let the juices start flowing on this thank you note, if you will, and said, now I want you to turn to your partner and speak your thank you as if your partner is the person who you are thanking. And look them in the eyes and thank them as you would in your note. Now this was just getting even more uncomfortable for my dad. Let's just say that he's not a believer in these kinds of exercises, typically. But he did as he was asked. He turned to his partner and he said, Mr. Gardner, thank you for being such an important person in my life. Beside my father, you were the most important person in my life. And I'm not even sure about the order. And then they were told to turn around. And now, my dad was supposed to be the coach who would accept the gratitude and respond to himself through his partner. So here's my dad being a good sport, waiting for it to be over. And he looks back at his partner as if it's himself and as if he's the coach, and he says, Martin, thank you for what you said. It means a lot to me. And then came the words that my dad did not expect. His coach said, don't sell your father short. It surprised him so much that he started crying. Now, my grandfather, my dad's dad, was a wonderful man, but as it is with many parents and children, there were some disappointments between the two of them that were never resolved before he died. And while it wasn't something that my dad dwells on or even thinks about very often, if it ever, it certainly was a sadness that he quietly carried with him in his heart. And so those words which seemed to come out of nowhere, but which must have been somewhere deep inside of him, healing words. Both of these men, the coach and his father, are long gone, but yet they live on. No matter how rough and tough we are, or think we are, somewhere within each of us, we have the poise and the wisdom and the love that was reflected to us by certain special people in our lives. It's in us. It's become us. It was just reflected back to us. And when we can access that, we're wiser and we're more whole. It's a reminder that sometimes we have to feel our way into forgiveness. It doesn't always make rational sense, and it doesn't always happen on our time or when we expect it. But when it occurs, it's tremendous. The person whose story I shared earlier about her mom, her mother's amnesia, ever since that experience, she's related differently to her mother. She even said she relates differently to her own children as a mother. Something shifted. In fact, she says that this new way of being, she sees each of them as, tries to see them with new eyes every day. So here's my challenge to you. You could try to find a partner and do the thank you exercise that I described with my father. Start writing a little thank you, share it as if whoever your partner is that person, and then turn around and respond. Or just choose something that in your life is in need of forgiveness, some grievance, some mistake that you made, some hurt that you carry. Try to figure out what's needed in that experience, what needs you have from that experience. And try to find a new way to look at the situation from how you've always seen it. Talk to someone wise who could give you some perspective, different from maybe what you've been thinking over and over again. Or try to imagine a wise person, like a coach or a teacher or a mentor or somebody in your life. See if you can claim anything good that's come to you or your life or the world because of that situation. Did you learn anything from it? Is it something that you think you will dwell on your deathbed? Write about it, pray about it if you do. Pray, meditate on it. Do something about it. Write a letter, seek repair, have a conversation. See if you can bless the one who caused you harm. That's when you know that you've made it to the other side of forgiveness. When you, in your own heart, feel you can bless the person who's done the harm. And that might be yourself. You don't have to forget to forgive. But if you can come to a place that you can see the other person as your equal, in the sense of they are equally worthy of love, just as you are, then you'll be freed. 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 You will achieve one of life's highest goals, and you will have reaped one of life's most precious bounties. You will have experienced love in one of its purest and most recognizable forms. May you find the capacity to forgive that lives within your own heart. And in doing so, may you wake up to your own life with a new sense of gratitude and wonder. Thank you.
You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed.
And be a blessing.